Today's steed is the Citroen C5 Mk1. A car which, when it came out, I just thought, oh dear, that's not a success. I mean, take a look at the outside. Following the beautiful sharp lines of the Bertone style Xantia, it was always going to be a disappointment. It seems a much bigger car than the Xantia. That's because it is. But it also feels a lot heavier. But with the HDI diesel engine, it certainly goes well enough. And it still handles and rides as a Citroen should. This example's done almost 200,000 miles, so it's a good test of how a car feels after some serious use. And there's a few rattles, there's lots of trim squeaks. Well, I think that's actually the windows reverberating in their rubber seals. One reason I've got the windows open at the moment is it's actually quieter. Citroen purists weren't keen on the C5 because it did away with the hydro-pneumatic system. Previously it controlled suspension, steering and brakes. This still has a hydro-pneumatic suspension, but the brakes and steering are now utterly conventional. Like most later hydro-pneumatic Citroens, the ride can be a little jiggly, but it still floats along majestically. It's a very nice setup. Of course, the beauty here is I've got self-leveling suspension, and now the pump is electric rather than driven by the engine. It'll self-level even when the engine's not on. You feel the weight with acceleration because it doesn't really want to accelerate. You can feel the weight. I think the engine's 110 brake horsepower in this. Oh, look, a Bentley Mark 6. Very nice. It's not a brisk car by any stretch of the imagination. It's quick enough, perhaps, if you're not pulling out in front of Toyota Hilux pickup trucks. But having driven one of these all the way to Paris and back some years ago, and that was an automatic, that was really good. It was just effortless mile munching. And then even when we got to the hideous crowded streets of Paris, the automatic gearbox took the pain out of it. I have the feeling that yet again I'm going to have to conclude that this is another vehicle I want. At least when you're inside you can't see the dumpy looks outside. Very little clue when you're driving along to how quirky that suspension is. There's just a little tendency to float a bit, which I quite like. Otherwise it just feels like a very comfortable conventional car. The HDI engine, it may not have a lot of grunt, but that's my foot down 1500 revs and I can feel the turbo kicking in. It wants to accelerate, and it would do if we weren't stuck behind a bloody Yaris. Gear change is amazingly good. I'm used to PSA gearboxes being utterly horrible. I was driving a Citroen C6 just the other week and I thought the gear change was dismal, but perhaps that's because I was expecting something a bit more from a quality car. PSA gearboxes are historically pretty crap. Yeah, you do feel the bumps. There's a problem. When Citroen started using front struts, effectively a McPherson strut with a sphere on the top. The problem is that just doesn't respond quickly enough to really sharp bumps and potholes. So while it'll float over undulations on uneven ground in a way that is just completely uncanny, you do feel the weaknesses when you hit potholes. So badly surfaced roads aren't the wafty experience you might expect, and that's true of BXs, it's true of XMs as well. There you go, that's my road test of the Citroen C5 Mk1. A car which is an absolute steal at the moment, and perhaps deserves a little more respect.